The body of 19-year-old Stephen Smith was exhumed over the weekend for an independent autopsy. This is the second autopsy that's been done on him since his death back in 2015.
By doing that Freedom of Information Act, I have copies of like the whole investigation, the autopsy, and then I read it and it made no sense. And then I got the photos and I seen how badly he was beaten. That's not a car.
We want to do over on Stephen Smith. We think that the investigation got it wrong, that it was not a highway fatality, that it was a homicide that was committed somewhere else. And that SLED should have been the one that initially investigated this fatality and not the highway department. And so it's our intention to petition through the coroner's office and ultimately the court to get the proper permission to exhume Stephen's body and have an expert who is familiar and has experience in exhuming bodies that have been in the ground for a long period of time and make a determination as to what caused that blunt force trauma.
We would look for all sorts of things actually on the body. For example, we would look for something we call road rash. If you're hit by a car and you're pushed along the pavement or even a dirt road or anything, you're going to have evidence of that on the body. It's going to be bruises, abrasions, things like that.
Stephen has been exhumed from his grave. This is a trying time for the Smith family. This weekend in particular, Stephen's remains were disturbed. He was, in theory, in peace in his grave. And now that he's been exhumed and he's going to have his autopsy be done, this is very trying for Sandy Smith at this time.
Now, we learned last week from the attorneys representing the family of Stephen Smith that Dr. Kenny Kinsey will be leading their private investigation into Stephen Smith's death that was originally considered to be a hit-and-run incident, as now it's being considered an intentional homicide. SLED reopening the case on the suspicious death back in 2021, stating they did so based on some details obtained while probing into the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. Don't know what exactly those details are that they learned. They haven't told the public yet, but one day, surely we will know. Let me bring in a very special guest now. I want to welcome back onto the program one of those attorneys who's representing the Smith family, Eric Bland, joining us from South Carolina. Eric, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. If you would please give us the very latest on where things stand today.
Good morning. As you aptly stated, that was a really good introduction. We've accomplished so much in 2 weeks, but what we really set out to do was get the exhumation approved by the government and get Stephen his second autopsy. Last week, it came together so quickly that when we went to the coroner, we got approval. When we went to the funeral homes, we got approval. When we had to go to the Department of Health and Environmental Control to get the final approval for exhumation, they gave it to us. And we were cooperating with SLED, which is the chief law enforcement agency in our state. And Chief Keel said, let's get it done Friday morning early. And the whole goal was for Sandy Smith to have a private moment with her son when his body was being exhumed and not have the media there. And somehow we were able to exhume his body, get it to Florida, have the autopsy be done, and then bring him back and reinterm him. And it took a tremendous amount of manpower, and we were able to do it. And Sandy, part of what she has fought for, she now has realized.
Isn't that the truth? Eric, I want to draw your attention to a picture that Sandy Smith shared with us. And while it breaks your heart, there's a look of peace almost, or something. When you look at her face, she's at her son's gravesite there, as you can see. And this is at the point where Stephen was returned to his final resting place. Would you talk to us about what was going on with her at that moment in time that this picture captures?
You could imagine this is a woman that fought alone, without any money for 8 years. Anybody who would put a microphone in front of her, she would speak to and tell the story of what had to be done to determine the true death of Stephen. And I think that picture you see right there is the culmination of not only SLED saying that they're going to devote the resources to investigating Stephen's death. But Chief Keel telling me that it's the state's position now that Stephen died of a homicide. And then her dream of, no, she didn't want to disinter her son just to do it, but to get him peace, to get his body exhumed, and then an autopsy be done to confirm that there was no way he was hit with an automobile, and then put him back in the ground so he can go back to rest. I mean, it's an amazing culmination of events for her in 2 weeks, and that's what she fought so hard for.
Isn't that the truth, Eric? She's been a tremendous advocate for her son for all those years, as you noted, and now, thankfully, she has professional advocates, you and your partner, Ronnie Richter, to help guide her through this. I want to ask you, please, about someone we noticed in the video. I have to credit my wonderful show line producer, Madison Allman, who has worked on Vinnie Politan's show previously. And she said, wait a second, I see someone I recognize in that video, Dr. Michelle Dupree. And there was that little clip of the doctor, as you know, Eric, in the introduction to this segment. What a tremendous person to be involved with this. Can you tell us what exactly her role is, please, Eric?
She's amazing. We tapped her to lead our forensic team to help us hire the best pathologist in this part of the country, because you had to transport Stephen, and we didn't want it to be more than a day of transportation. And then she helped us get an anthropology and someone that can do the pathology from an anthropological standpoint because of how long Stephen was in there. So she led the team. She was with Stephen every second from the minute he was exhumed all the way to Florida, through the investigation and back. We also have Dr. Kenny Kinsey, who was one of the more popular witnesses at the Murdaugh trial, who is going to conduct investigation and provide support and information to SLED. SLED's the investigative agency. SLED's taken this over. But we've hired Dr. Kenny Kinsey to provide a buffer for Sandy and a line of communication to SLED.
Oh, he's tremendous. That was a great move. As you know, Eric, you certainly don't need me to tell you that, but we were thrilled to hear it, and we're really great admirers of his work as we were watching him on the witness stand and listening to him. He is just tremendous and truly as nice as he is bright. So for that reason, too, because this is tough, as you know, Eric. You've represented many people, and situations are tough when you suffer a loss like this. It's a very upsetting process. And litigation, as you know, it's very unpleasant. And so it's great to have nice people like him and Dr. Dupree, who's been a frequent guest on Vinnie's show, Closing Arguments. We were just talking about her earlier this week. Madison and I were having a conversation about having her weigh in on some cases. So this is great. Did she help you then select the medical examiner who did the second autopsy then, Eric?
Yes, she did. We locked in, and Dan Schultz out of Florida, Tampa, Florida, did the second autopsy along with Heather Haney, who was the anthropologist. Dr. Dupree was present. She gave her hand. SLED sent people to Florida, both for protection and for the clarity of what was going on and securing evidence for the investigation. Again, it was a total team effort. But Dr. Dupree led the scientific end of it, and then my partner Ronnie Richter and I did the logistical end of it, getting the permits, interfacing with SLED, getting unmarked cars there with officers to protect so that media couldn't infringe on Sandy's private moment.
You did this so swiftly, which is wonderful for Sandy Smith. She is in excellent hands. And I want to talk to you more after this break, please, Eric, about kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the team you've assembled, how often you're meeting and talking and assessing everything that needs to be done in this case. And also want to mention, as we head to break, we want to talk about that new reward that's now being offered for information leading to an arrest in the death of Stephen Smith, $35,000. This information put out, of course, by our guest, Eric Bland's firm. And we're going to talk more about that as well after this.
a mystery that's captivated the nation.
This stretches just so beyond what anyone could imagine.
And left a trail of dead bodies.
Lori Vallow Daybell, accused of triple murder, including her 2 youngest children.
You'll hear every dramatic moment with real-time expert analysis.
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
The Doomsday Cult Mom Murder Trial. Coverage begins this week after jury selection, only on Court TV.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
Hello, I just going down the Crockerville Road. I see somebody laying out.
And is it in the road or on the side of the road?
It's in the road.
Oh, in the road?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll get an officer headed out that way to see what's going on.
I ain't moving or nothing like that, but somebody going to hit him. It's dark. Somebody going to hit him.
All right, we'll get an officer headed out that way.
Almost 8 years and still no answers as to how Stephen Smith was killed. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. So on Monday, there was an announcement in a statement released by the family that is representing Stephen Smith's mother. By the attorneys, the law firm representing Stephen Smith's mother, Sandy Smith. It reads in part, quote, Sandy Smith is allocating $35,000 from the monies raised on her behalf through a GoFundMe as a reward for information leading to the arrest of any responsible party in the death of Stephen Smith. More than $100,000 has been raised by the Smith family in a GoFundMe to put toward the exhumation and a private autopsy as they continue their search for justice and clarity into the death of the 19-year-old. And I have a member of that law firm on the show with me this morning, attorney Eric Bland from the Bland Richter Law Firm, our special guest today. Eric, always great to see you. And
good to see you, Julie.
With this reward, thank you kindly. Tell me, is this giving Sandy Smith a little more hope now that there's a little bit of money behind this? And of course, there can be anonymity too, right? That's important to mention too, isn't it?
Exactly, Julie. We could not be where we are but for the generosity of all these people who donated, whether it was $1, some $500. We even got a $1,000 gift to the GoFundMe. We wouldn't have been able to do the exhumation. We wouldn't have been able to do the second autopsy and all the transportation costs, as you can imagine. We wouldn't have been able to employ Dr. Dupree and Dr. Kinsey. So we think the answer to what happened to Stephen is going to come from somebody coming forward. There's been a real stranglehold in that area of our state by the Murdaughs for many, many years, Julie. And we think, and so does Chief Keel from SLED, that with the conviction of Alex Murdaugh, more people will come forward because they know that the Murdaugh name and their cachet isn't what it was at one time, that they don't have the power that they do. And we think whether you know what happened or there's a fact that you know that somebody said years later in a party about, somebody hitting somebody or anything having to do directly or indirectly with Stephen Smith, we think this reward will incentivize that. And it's the right thing to do for the use of these funds.
Isn't that the truth?
And it has the support of Chief Keel. He is very, very supportive of putting a reward.
Wonderful. Chief Mark Keel, of course, the chief of SLED, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Yes, Eric, you're right. The tide has really turned for the Murdaughs, especially after the criminal conviction with Alec Murdaugh, that the country and really we have viewers all around the world who were watching that closely and, of course, became more and more interested in Stephen Smith's case. It kept coming up. His name kept being mentioned. I want to play a little clip we have of Stephen Smith's mother, and she's making reference to how there was something that happened during the Murdaugh investigation that led SLED to reopen the case.
Why did they reopen the investigation?
It was something they found while they were investigating Paul and Maggie's death, was all I was told.
Okay.
But what it is, I do not know.
Do you have any suspicions or ideas or what you think it may be?
At first, I thought maybe it was something on his phone, Paul's phone. And then rumor was going out they found something on his computer, and then they found a baseball bat. But I have no clue what it is, but I know I'm going to know soon.
We all will. And Eric, we know SLED has been very tight-lipped about this, but arguably you and your partner are people closest to this investigation, in addition to Sandy Smith. Any clues that you might have picked up on as to what it could potentially be?
No, I mean, Chief Keel did not share that kind of information with us because it could alert somebody who is a potential target to dispose of any evidence that may exist. Do I think that there's a baseball bat out there? I don't know. I definitely know that he wasn't hit by a car. And I definitely am confident that SLED believes that there's an individual out there that has information. And people have been named persons of interest over the weekend, which I think is wrong. You should never out a name because it could prevent others from coming forward. So we have trust and confidence in Chief Keel after how he investigated the Alex Murdaugh matter from the SLED standpoint. And I have confidence that he's going to put the full bore manpower that is at his disposal into Stephen Smith. So I don't know what the piece of evidence is. I will tell you one thing. SLED is very tight-lipped, as you said, because there's been a lot of chatter about a rape kit having been done, and they can't find it. The only thing I'm going to say, and I won't talk about the evidence anymore, is they do have the rape kit. So whatever the public thinks that SLED has or they don't have, they're not going to confirm it. I wanted to confirm that because people were slamming SLED for purportedly losing the rape kit, which they have not.
Well, that's wonderful that they still have it, and thank you for confirming that much for us, Eric. Tell me, how confident are Dr. Dupree, Dr. Schultz, and Dr. Haney in being able to examine the evidence and ascertain the information that's going to help solve this death so many years after his body has been buried?
I don't think, and I haven't heard the final results, but I don't think there's going to be a wow moment that comes out of the autopsy where they're going to be able to say, yep, it was caused by this one single thing. I think what they're doing is more of a differential diagnosis like doctors always do, and they're eliminating things. And so at the end, it's still going to have to be solved by law enforcement. The autopsy itself is not going to solve the crime, but it was necessary to do. It was, I can tell you this, it was a complete autopsy. There was nothing that limited the ability of those three doctors to do a head-to-toe autopsy. So that's a good thing. We were worried that there was going to be some compromise due to him being in the ground so long, but there was a full and robust autopsy that was done.
Well, that's another very encouraging piece of news you're sharing with us, Eric. Thank you for that this morning as well. Sure. I know we'll have to let you go in just a couple of minutes, but why don't we end on this note, please? Would you kind of give our viewers an inside look into what the team meetings look like, how you all are able to collaborate together, everyone from Dr. Kinsey to Dr. Dupree, you, your partner, Sandy Smith, how things are working with you all day by day?
It works very well. We have we exchanged texts in the morning, and like yesterday, everybody was on different television channels, and we kind of collaborate on, what we should say and not say. Obviously, we do not want to give away anything that could prejudice the investigation, and so we're very careful about what we say. It's going to be an incremental investigation on our part, and again, we're not investigators. But we are going to kind of shadow SLED only to provide them with information, because through my podcast, I get a lot of tips. Through my law firm, we get tips. And so what I'm saying is it's going to be Dr. Kenny Kinsey investigating these tips that we're getting and determining, we need to turn these over to SLED, because we do get a lot of tips a day that so to speak, are just worthless. Some are people that, want to inflame, and they say things that aren't true. And so Dr. Kenny Kinsey is going to filter through that. He has a better eye for legitimate complaints than I do, of course.
Well, you all are tremendous advocates. You know, you made the point, you said, I'm not an investigator, but you are a great advocate, and that's really what Sandy Smith needs right now. Attorney Eric Bland, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your time.
for having me.
Of course,
Sure.
and we'll see you very soon.